Buying or renting your primary residence, which one is better? I know this topic is actually a very emotional one for everybody in the audience, including ourselves. And today we're going to have a debate to talk about it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode at NOVARISE. And today we're going to talk about a key question that haunts pretty much everybody. Is it really better to buy your primary residence to live in, or is it better to rent it to live in and use the money for something else? So what we're going to do today is do a healthy debate about our different opinions about the subject. I know you've always been more team, I want to buy my primary residence, and I've always been more of a team, I want to rent and use the money to buy and make money elsewhere. So to start off the conversation, let's just talk about renting, because I know that usually creates a bit of a controversy because of the emotional attachment most of us have to owning our home, right? So first off, we have to take into consideration what's considered an ideal home for everybody. And as you know, we live in New York City, but not everywhere in New York City could be the ideal place for us to live in, right? Like I have my favorite neighborhood, it has to meet a certain criteria, and the neighborhood that I like, or where I would like to have my home, my primary residence, is a place where prices are not so affordable. Let's say an average house, 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 2 if you're really lucky, because the houses in our area are very old. Call it a fixer-upper, so to speak, starts at $1.2 million. That is a lot of money for a house. And in fact, we actually run some numbers, and I believe the mortgage for a house of that caliber was about $10,000 a month, right? Now, we currently rent, and the rent that we pay is about $2,000 a month if we round it up, right? So $10,000 versus $2,000 a month, that's quite a big jump from one thing to another. So I know that some might say, yeah, but you're comparing your dream house with an apartment. It's not the same thing. But let's just really define what really is the same. Some people claim that a home will only be that place that you buy in. But I disagree with it, because a home is what you make of it, right? You can have an apartment, but if you turn it into your sanctuary, the place that you come in, you unwind, you recharge your energy, it doesn't really matter whether it's rented or buy. At the end of the day, it is still money you're paying. With a rental, you're paying money for the right to live there. And with a purchase, you're actually paying the bank for the right to own the property, because you're not truly a homeowner until you fully paid off that mortgage. And even then, you still don't fully own that home, because you will still have to pay property taxes. Otherwise, Uncle Sam will come in and take the property away from you. So my view of things is that, wow, it is $10,000 right here. I'm putting all of that money into a house. And what happens if I lose my source of income? Then I will lose the house completely. But if I have that same income, that $10,000, and I rent it out, that means I still have $8,000 left. And with that $8,000 left, I can invest that money to generate more income, more passive income, not necessarily depend from my salary, and then just simply take that money to either buy real estate that I could rent elsewhere and create income that it's going to pay off that mortgage, and hopefully enough cash flow to keep setting money aside so that I can rinse and repeat and buy more of the property. Some people choose to take that money and invest it in the stock market or cryptocurrency or precious metals. But the point is, you kind of like have more leeway as to what you want to do with that money versus when you buy it. So that's my defense. Pro, hey, this is the reason why I like to keep renting. What about you? You are team purchase. I like to buy my primary residence. I want to own my primary residence.
I think one of the reasons that I prefer buying the primary residence for ourselves is because I'm just thinking about the amount of money that you pay monthly to your landlord. Renting an apartment here in New York City is not cheap. Like we're talking minimum $2,000 a month. So just multiply 2,000 times 12. That will be about $24,000 a year. Assuming that you stay in the property for 3 years, that's an equivalent of $72,000. So that's more than enough for a down payment of an apartment here in New York City.
Not an apartment where we live, though.
But
a apartment.
Yeah. So $72,000, it is a lot of money, and you paying your landlord that money. And at the end of the 3 years, maybe you're moving out to a different house. I see it as a loss. Yes, you had a lot of good experiences in that house or that apartment, but at the end of the day, you could have used that money to pay for a down payment of your own house, your own apartment, depending on whatever you want to own.
I think that answer is kind of relative because, I mean, yeah, $72,000 could be a down payment for a property, but it is not the property in the place or in the area where you ideally would like to live in. So if I'm going to put all that money just to get a place, right, XYZ place, that I'm not 100% satisfied with it, then what's the whole point? I'd rather take all that $72,000 and invest it elsewhere. And that home that I'm buying for someone else to rent will be the ideal place for them. It will also be the ideal place for me because, hey, it's generating income. So anything that generates incomes for me, it's ideal. And I don't have to worry about being, I wouldn't say house poor, but like constrained. Because once you buy a property, let's face it, the cost of a mortgage, especially at the rates that we're dealing with today, are much higher. So we just compare it, $10,000 versus $2,000. So let's say we don't go for the ideal house. We will go for a smaller place, which probably might not be in the area that we currently reside in. We're going to have to compromise on the geographical area, which in essence, you're paying a lot, but you're not getting exactly what you're getting in exchange of the title of, oh, I'm a homeowner. I don't know about you, but that to me doesn't sound right because it's not giving me a peace of mind because I am living in an area where I'm not completely satisfied with, which means that my money is not necessarily getting me what I want. And on top of that, I don't get any passive income out of it. Like I am working actively to pay for that mortgage because now it's a primary residence. It's not necessarily a investment property. Yes, I get that with a rental is kind of the same. I'm still paying $2,000, but this time I'm paying it towards somebody else's property and not necessarily mine. So I'm not building equity. But the way I see it again is it is still your home because you're renting the right to live there. So when you rent a place, you're renting for the right to be there for as long as the lease allows you and as long as the landlord and you agree to live in. And it's no different than with a mortgage because, like I said, the property is never truly yours. As long as you have a mortgage, you are indebted to the bank. And then after you're done with the bank, then you still have to deal with Uncle Sam anyways. So if I'm going to go through that level of discomfort, so to speak, I might as well just go all the way in to the point that I am 100% satisfied. Otherwise, I will always seek for the alternative. It doesn't necessarily mean that your way is wrong and mine is right or vice versa, but that's speaking from a kind of like a mental peace or like a satisfaction standpoint. Like I wouldn't want to go into such a big debt just so I can have the title of home ownership, knowing that there are other alternatives that can give me a much greater peace of mind. And what gives me a peace of mind is know that I have income coming in. And that's actually my biggest fear, looking at my bank account and seeing zero or seeing near nothing in it and risking that I could also lose my job in a economic downturn. And now I truly lost everything because in order to buy a house, you put your down payment. And when you lose the property because of foreclosure, you're not only losing your right to live there, you're also losing all the money that you put in as a down payment versus in a rental is like, well, what's the most you lose? Like the month in advance that you pay for security deposit, but you're not losing $72,000. So that's my way to view it.
I agree with you. Losing your job can definitely be a hurdle for you, like, or anyone whatsoever. But I think each person has a different situation. And I'm just going to talk about myself right now. So in the position which we are right now, Like, I will try to see, okay, is there any other ways that I can save money, either not paying as much on taxes at the end of the year, so I can use that money to pay for the mortgage. Example will be, if you have a business, you're working from home, right? There are going to be several tactics that you can apply. You can ask your accountant about this, where you can deduct spaces of your house. So because you're going to be working from there, you're going to be working from home, you're using equipment that probably you're going to use for your company. So you can deduct some of those expenses, and at the end of the year, not pay too much taxes for your company, and in a way kind of like offsets and gives you some more profits in your pocket because you're not paying as much on taxes as you could have been if you were not applying those strategies. Now, you also talked about losing your job. Anyone can lose their job, right? Now, it depends, what are you going to do about it? Because if you lost your job, that means that you need to go in survival instinct. You're not just going to let that property slide out of your hands right away. You have strategies like Airbnb. You can probably rent it to a friend or family momentarily, maybe a room. And you can charge them, I don't know, $1,000, $2,000, depending on what's the market rate. So there are many things that you can do. On top of that, you can even pull some money out of your credit cards. You can pay more towards the mortgage. And that means that you're going to be paid less interest on the mortgage as well. And on top of that, if you have some extra money that you have left over after the end of the month, you can even keep adding more and more money, not only from the credit cards, but also from your own paychecks.
So I'm assuming that when you said pull money out of the credit card to pay for the mortgage, you meant it while that person was still employed, right? Yeah. To lower the mortgage, because I'm thinking the last thing you want to do is to keep adding more debt if you lost your job. Maybe you'll have to use those credit cards, but for your basic needs like food and just making sure you still got your utilities paid and stuff like that. But like, you wouldn't necessarily add more debt to the fire or debt to the mix, right?
Yeah. All I'm saying is that once you are in the survival mode, you find ways to make it work. In another way that just occurred to me, because I saw a couple of items on Facebook Marketplace, and I made some decent money out of it. So it's not a completely loss, because what happens when you buy something for your house, you use it for a couple of times, and then most likely you just get rid of it. What if you can sell those items in Facebook Marketplace? I also made money from selling on eBay. So you can just go to eBay, Facebook Marketplace to start selling the stuff that you no longer need in your house. It takes time. Of course, it's going to take some time to sell.
Well, I mean, if you're an employee, you got all the time in the world.
But you need to hustle. And whenever you don't have a job, you need to hustle, find ways in which you can keep that property for you. So in a way, I agree with your way, which is like buying a property for rental, buying enough property so all that cash flow can sustain your lifestyle or whatever properties you plan on buying in the future. But also, there are other ways of looking at it, because you don't want to lose all that money that you're paying monthly to your landlord. And instead of using that money to pay your landlord, like I said before, you can just use it to pay your mortgage. We didn't talk about appreciation on a property. Like, it doesn't happen all the time, but I'm sure in a lot of properties happen appreciation. So let's say you bought it and you kept that property for 3 years. It doesn't mean that it will stay at the same price that you bought it for. Most likely, and I hope, your property will go up in price.
But one can say the same about my rentals, right? Like, well, it's going to appreciate over time. It's going to worth more money. I can do a cash out refi and pull even more money out of it, which you can do it also in a primary residence. But then there's also the fact that rent also, in general, appreciate over time. So that means that my rental income is going to increase over time, versus when you're owning your primary home, it doesn't necessarily increase. Yes, the value is increasing, but it's not generating income unless you actively choose to make it a income producing property, which sometimes can be a little bit limited if you reside there. There you have it. So 2 different points of view. Doesn't mean his or mine are right or better than the other. It's just different ways to look at things.
It depends on your situation.
Yeah. So tell me, are you more on team, I have to own my house and I will do whatever it takes, I will preserve it and take care of it? Or are you team, I prefer to rent and have a rental portfolio that pays itself off, and the fact that I don't get to call myself a homeowner doesn't make any much of a difference? So once again, different points of view. Let us know what you think down in the comments, and we're looking forward to read them. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.